Hi, I'm Carla Butorac, and welcome to Behavior Communicates. If you work in special education, there's a good chance you may encounter students who have seizures. If you have never witnessed a grand mal seizure, it could be scary. That fear could be lessened if you have information and know what to do. Today, I'm happy to have with me Julie Stonebreaker, who is a nurse at one of our local high schools. She takes care of, among others, our students who have mild, moderate, and severe cognitive delays. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Can you give us, our viewers, some ideas on what we can do or what they can do when a seizure occurs?
Sure. I think, first of all, we kind of need to define what a seizure is so people know what it is. And a seizure is just an abnormal electrical activity in the brain. They stop and they start very suddenly. Typically, they are not very long at all, only lasting about a minute or two. And it can seem very scary because you may think somebody's in pain or they're in a life-threatening situation, but most times when people have a seizure, that's just not the case.
So what kinds of seizures are there?
Seizures can be defined into a couple of classifications, and that is based on whether you lose consciousness or not. A partial seizure occurs and you do not lose consciousness, and a generalized seizure you do. Partial seizures can further be broken down into a simple or complex seizure. In a simple partial seizure, you do not lose consciousness. You are alert and aware of your situation, but you might have some motor effects such as twitching. You might have some sensory effects such as some numbness or tingling, or you might have autonomic effects where you feel like your heart's racing, your hair's standing on end, or something just isn't right. If you're having a complex partial seizure, you are confused. You're still conscious, but you are confused. You may see somebody having this type of a seizure wandering around the room, not really knowing what they're doing. They might be wringing their hands, picking at their clothing, or even smacking their lips and gulping with their throat. So they are conscious, but they are confused. In a generalized seizure, you are unconscious, and these are the kind that we see that people think of when they think of a seizure. The tonic-clonic seizure, which used to be known as the grand mal seizure, and that is where you have tonic, or stiffening, tightening of the muscles, and then the jerking, which is the clonic activity. You also might see somebody having a generalized seizure that's known as an atonic seizure, and that is where you lose all muscle tone and you just drop to the ground. So that can be very dangerous with falls and worrying about somebody hitting their head. These are the kinds of seizures where we see people wearing helmets to protect them from injury. And then some people can also have what's known as an absence seizure or a petit mal seizure. And these are the kind of seizures that you kind of lose time and you seem to be staring off and kind of spacey and just not aware of the situation. And so those are all generalized types of seizures that you can have.
So what do you do about that?
When somebody's having a seizure, the most important thing you can do is stay calm. Again, most of them are very short and they will resolve themselves. So it's important for you as the person who's going to help to stay calm. It's important to note the time because length of time in a seizure is important. If it's one of those simple or complex partial seizures, it may just be staying with them, making sure they're safe. If it's the generalized seizure and they're on the floor, you want to protect them from injury as much as possible. They may be jerking on the floor, so if there are items around them, such as chairs, desks, you want to make sure those are moved. If they are moving and it looks like their head's going to be hitting the ground, you want to protect their head from hitting the ground or hitting the wall. You could remove their glasses if need be, or even loosen clothing if it feels like it's really tight around the neck. You also want to make sure you turn them on their side, because when you're having a seizure, you produce more saliva than usual and you're not swallowing normally. So you want to turn them on their side just to make sure that those secretions come out instead of going down into their lungs. And then you do not want to try to restrain them, just let the seizure run its course. And most importantly, never put anything in their mouth. We used to talk about doing that, and you may think that you're going to keep the airway open that way, but really when that jaw tightens, you might bite off whatever you put in their mouth, and then that's a choking hazard. So never ever put anything in somebody's mouth who's having a seizure.
So what are some treatments for seizures?
A couple things we see if a seizure lasts for a certain period of time, typically over 5 minutes, sometimes medication is prescribed known as Diastat, and that is the medication that is given rectally. So if you are going to give that medication, you do want to think about the privacy of an individual getting that medication. Another thing that we see people have is a vagal nerve stimulator or a VNS device. And this is a device that is implanted in the upper left part of the chest, and it has wires running to the vagus nerve. And this device will send electrical impulses to the brain via the vagus nerve. And the goal is that these stimulations will override the abnormal electrical stimuli in the brain and then prevent seizures from happening. These VNS devices come with a magnet that can be kept on the wrist like a watch or on the belt. And if somebody feels like they're going to have a seizure, or if they are actually having a seizure, you can take the magnet and you can swipe it across the device, starting at the center of the chest and going to the outer portion of the chest, so 1/1000. And you can repeat that procedure every minute if somebody continues to have a seizure. But typically, like we said, seizures are usually self-limiting and only go about a couple of minutes, so you may only use it 1 or 2 times during the course of a seizure.
So after a seizure is over, what do you do?
Again, typically they don't last very long, so you want to make sure that you reassure that person who's had a seizure as they're coming back around. Reorient them to their surroundings. Maybe they don't remember where they're at. And then allow the person to rest. If you've just had a generalized tonic-clonic seizure, you may be tired for an hour or so, so that person may need a safe place that they can lay down and just kind of take a little nap until they're ready to go again.
So what would you say would be a true emergency, or what would you do in case of emergency? What does that look like?
True emergencies, where we're talking about calling 911, these are seizures that we see that last longer than 5 minutes. It's clusters of seizures, so you have a seizure start and then it stops, and then a couple minutes later another one starts again, and it just seems like the seizure activity keeps repeating itself. That would be a time to call 911. Or if somebody fell, hit their head, they were injured, maybe they're bleeding, they're going to have to get stitches, something like that. That would be a time to call 911.
Thank you, Julie, for joining me here today. You shared a lot of really good information that I know my viewers are going to want.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
And thank you so much for joining me here at Behavior Communicates. Just remember, the more we know about how to help the child or the students we love, the better quality life they will have. If you like this video and you want to be in the know, sign up for Behavior Communicates and you'll automatically get my weekly video and blog, plus other resources that I only share with my subscribers. Please share this video with your parents, teachers, coworkers, and friends on Facebook, Twitter, and all your other social media. You take care, and I'll see you next time.